I'm Dr. Joyce Alberts, clinical psychologist working in private practice in North Canterbury, New Zealand. I've been posting a series of videos related to the tragic death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe and then the subsequent trials of his girlfriend, Karen Reid, who was charged with causing his death and who's been guilty. I just want to give a couple updates. And first of all, we may notice I look a bit draggled. I've got a full day ahead. So, yes, I've jumped out of the shower. I prefer to let my hair dry naturally. It's thinned a lot over time, but I used to have really, really, really thick hair and blow drying just takes forever. I also want to just give a shout out to attorney Melanie Reid. Melanie Reid put me onto a product, and I've purchased a New Zealand version of this product and I'm absolutely loving it. I know this is going to be reversed, but this hopefully will come up. It's a whipped tallow, and this is the Manuka honey and vanilla, and it's made by a New Zealand company called Primal Pantry. They've also brought out an eye cream, shampoo, and conditioner. So if you love natural products, if you love your skin to feel good, if you want to look after yourself, then you might want to give it a try. It's affordable and it's a great product. I use this throughout the day. I'll use it as a hand cream, use it on my face. I'm feeling a bit dry under my eyes because of hay fever. I'll just put a little bit extra underneath my eyes as well. Okay, so let's carry on. Important things first. So I just wanted to do a couple of things today before I launch into it. You may recall that in other videos I've mentioned how I, just as a layperson here in New Zealand, really found some of what happened during this investigation just to be jaw-dropping. So you may remember Lieutenant Paul Gallagher. He's since retired and I understand now lives in Florida playing golf. It's a lovely tan. He came up with some brilliant ideas. He thought they were really innovative. Falling over my words today. Might have to another sip of coffee, wake myself up. Okay, so Paul Gallagher came up with the brilliant idea of using a leaf blower to remove the snow in order that they would be able to scoop up evidence into solo cups, red solo cups. These were then not sealed. They were placed into a brown paper bag, a shopping bag that you might get from a supermarket or a convenience store. And they were placed for a period of time in the Canton Police Department's garage, or as some have called it, a sally port, behind Karen's SUV after her SUV was seized. A search warrant was put in place and they drove to Dighton, where Karen Reid was at that time with her parents. They picked up Karen's SUV on a tow truck and it was driven to the Canton Police Department. Now, a number of things that's important for that. The Canton Police Department were supposed to have recused themselves or withdrawn from being involved in this investigation due to a number of conflicts of interest. For example, Kevin Albert was a detective in the Canton Police Department, and he was the brother of Brian Albert. Brian Albert being the oldest of a number of siblings. Brian Albert was a Boston police officer, and John O'Keefe, also a Boston police officer, was found deceased on the front lawn of Brian Albert, his property. Just again, you may see my name is Joyce Alberts. No relation, no connection whatsoever. In fact, my daughter freaked out when she said, everyone's talking about the Alberts and all the dodgy stuff they've done. I said, don't worry, it's not us. Nothing to do with us. And they don't have the S on the end of their name. Okay, so I was flicking through the trial channel, and you may recall I have permission from the trial channel to share some of their information, their videos, and I'm going to do a little bit of that today. So the first one I'm going to share is a still taken from the trial, and this is trial number 1, I understand, and this will be a still that is taken during the direct examination of Lieutenant Paul Gallagher. Can you see that? So let me just make that bigger for a moment. Okay, so this, I understand, is a tyre. This is a mat that's within the garage, and here you can clearly see the 6 solo cups. They've got snow and other liquids in them. They've been scooped up after using a leaf blower to remove layers of snow. They've been placed in this brown paper bag, and they're about to be placed on the floor behind Karen's SUV in the Canton Police Department. I'll stop sharing that one now. So one of the things that's important in terms of thinking about this, so the John O'Keefe's body was discovered in the early hours, I think about 6:30 on the 29th of January on the front lawn of Brian Albert's. I'm a bit distracted because I'm now trying to get rid of this full screen which is showing up on my one. Is that going to work? No, I think I just closed myself. There we go. That worked better. Okay. Distracted. Clicking on mice. Okay, so the police start their investigation in the early hours of the morning. It was daylight. It was dark, I should say. It was dark. This is winter time in Canton, Massachusetts, near Boston. It was dark at the time that Karen Reed, Kerry Roberts, Jen McCabe, and then the first responders, firefighters, police, etc., were on scene. John's body had been transferred to the Good Samaritan Hospital in Canton, where attempts were made to revive him. The important thing is the blood samples that I just showed you were collected in the morning. Karen Reed's Lexus was not taken into Canton Police Department's garage until about 5:30 in the evening. So the question remains, where were the blood samples during that time? Between the time that they were collected at the scene at 34 Fairview Road in Canton until the time that you just saw in that still shot, someone is placing them on the floor in the Canton Police Department garage behind Karen's SUV. It's just a number of questions that I have. Because during that time, they're not sealed. Where were they stored? Who had access to them? Were they contaminated in any way? And another thing that really struck me in this investigation, only one of those solo cups was ever tested for DNA. Only one. The crime lab did not test all 6. Only one was selected. Only one was tested. I don't know what that means. I just find it unusual in terms of processes. So that's just one of many questions I have. So here we go. Here's some other questions that came out of the first trial and second trial. And to this day, I have no answers for them. But this is just showing where I became interested, and I'm just scratching my head going, is that the way police normally do it? Because that's not what I understood from listening to police case or criminal trials here in New Zealand, talking to people who work in this area. So it leaves me with so many questions. For example, you may or may not be surprised, I certainly was, that the Albert home, so John's body was found near the flagpole on the front lawn of Brian Albert's home. The police went into the home briefly, 2 police officers, to speak to Brian and Nicole Albert, and I understand Jen McCabe was there at the time. Possibly Matt McCabe had already arrived, not to do an interview or anything, but just to speak to them, and then left. The scene, the front lawn, was never taped off. It was never secured. And although the Boston Police, Kenton Police, continued to find pieces of plastic, allegedly from the rear taillight of Karen's SUV, they never secured the front yard. And the people who never found anything on the front yard were the owners of the home who lived there. They never found anything. And the scene examination retrieval team, the CERT team, they found, I think, about 3, maybe 4 pieces of plastic. But the remainder of the plastic was found throughout the rest of the week by police officers who, as they're driving past the property, spotted sometimes small, sometimes larger pieces of plastic. So the plastic taillight pieces were not retrieved all together at the same time. They were retrieved by different members of the police department over different days on a scene that was not secure. You may also find it surprising that the interior home of the Albert house at 34 Fairview Road was never searched. No crime investigation team went into that home. And that was surprising because there was allegedly a broken cocktail glass or a drinking glass found within the vicinity of John's body. Potentially a piece of glass had been stuck in his nose. And that's important because the initial determination of the medical people and even the first police officers to contact the medical examiner, in this case, Yuri Buchanan, was that an altercation had occurred. John had suffered trauma to the front of his face, possibly a glass hitting his nose, causing a laceration on his nose. And logic would say then, well, there are a number of possibilities where this glass could have come from. Could have come from within the house, could have come from the Waterfall Bar or McCarthy's Bar, one of the places where John had frequented, but they never checked it. They never verified where that glass came from. Another question I have, and this may astound you as well. So while people were interviewed, witnesses who were present at the house at the time that John passed away, no witness statements were taken. So why was it that the police never took witness statements from Jen McCabe, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, or anyone else who was present at that place? No formal witness statements taken. Interviews were conducted and police did write reports related to the interviews, but these people were not asked to sign witness statements. I don't know if anyone else has been involved in any police investigation. I know I was a witness to an event that occurred in Christchurch many years ago. I was asked to go to the police department. I was asked to give a formal witness statement, which the police officer typed as he asked questions, and I gave answers. And at the end of it, I was asked to sign the witness statement. And that witness statement was then used. It was part of a criminal prosecution against this person. And I was expected to give evidence based on my witness statement at the time of this incident. Thankfully, the person pled guilty on the day of the trial as I was in the waiting area, waiting to go in and give evidence. So I didn't need to give evidence. He went straight to sentencing and got a rather severe sentence. So that was my question. How come? They talked to them, but they never took any formal witness statements of the very people who were present at the scene. Just blows my mind. And then another question, why did the police talk to Kerry Roberts, Jen McCabe, and others in their own home when they were all together? That is, Kerry Roberts was interviewed when Jen McCabe and Matt McCabe were present. Now, the police would say, they've said under oath that they had interviewed them in a separate room. However, there is evidence, and Jen McCabe did have to acknowledge this, that she obviously could hear what Kerry was saying to the police because she'd sent a text message to her chat group saying Kerry's telling them everything. So why weren't they separated? Why weren't they asked to come to the police station? I was asked to go to the police station. They didn't come to my home to take a witness statement. These weren't witness statements. These were interviews. They were asking questions and they wrote a report, but these people never had to sign a witness statement. And it just leaves me scratching my head as to what is that. As far as I know, it's not standard police procedure, I don't think, in any country. I brought this up before too. Why did Brian Higgins go to the Canton Police Station at 1:30 a.m., 29th of January 2022? So this is around the time potentially either before, well, most likely after it's assumed that John O'Keefe had already passed away. Those who follow forensic investigations, etc., know that determining the exact time of death, unless there's other documentation, is not an exact science, and usually a range is given. And in this case, it may have been confounded by body temperature. So Brian Higgins had said to the police that he had gone home. He said in different pieces of evidence that he's given that he went home, that he left the Alberts residence because it'd been a long day. He'd been to a funeral in New York for a fellow police officer. He'd travelled home by vehicle with Brian Albert. They had stopped at least once to have a beer or drink. Brian Higgins drinks whiskey. So Brian Albert apparently drinks beer. So they'd had a drink. They then were at the waterfall for a number of hours, continuing to drink. They then go back to Brian Albert's and home, and they continue to drink. And Brian Higgins acknowledges that he at least had one beer at Brian Albert's home. And he does acknowledge that he had at least 5 whiskies at the waterfall. So he initially says it's a long day, he was tired, he just wanted to go home, but he doesn't go home. There is video footage of Brian Higgins arriving at the Canton Police Department, going into the building, going down a corridor to his office, going back out to, he had 2 vehicles. He had his personal vehicle and he had a work vehicle, and he's seen transferring a large, what looks like a duffel bag, like a soft bag that you might use for travel or storing things in, and he transfers the large bag from what appears to be his work vehicle into his personal vehicle. When he was asked why he went to the police station and why did not go home, he initially said he went to the police station because he had admin work to do, administrative work to do. Then he's challenged again, well, actually, there's other footage of you out in the car park. Then he says, well, he was going to move vehicles because it was a snow event and he didn't want his vehicle to potentially be in the way of other Canton police officers as they arrive for work. But he is not shown to move any vehicle. He drives in his Jeep and he leaves in his Jeep. He does go from his Jeep to what I assume is his police vehicle, police issued vehicle, but he doesn't move that. He doesn't move any other vehicles, and then he leaves. Well, actually, he doesn't leave. He does go back, apparently, to Brian Albert's. Then he goes back to the police station, and he effectively spends the day at the police station because he is seen on the video footage in the car in the garage where Karen's SUV is being stored by the police. So just, you know, if you're just a witness, don't you just say what you saw? If you're just a witness, don't you tell exactly what you did? Why is it that you keep changing your story? Why is it going from I went home to no, actually didn't. I went to the police department. I had administrative work to do that involved moving vehicles. No, actually, he doesn't move those vehicles at all. And why does he spend the rest of the day there? He said he was tired. Why didn't he go home for a sleep? Okay. Now, why was Jen McCabe allowed by the police to delete information from her phone before handing it over to the police? So this is in the days after John O'Keefe's death. And Jen McCabe is asked by the police permission to go through her phone to look for text messages, phone calls, other information. She asks and she says, well, can I delete messages between myself and my children? She has 3 daughters. And they go, sure, go ahead. Delete what you need. And she does. I mean, who knows what she deleted? And in fact, we do know what she deleted, because that's going to come up in another video, because she does delete more than what she said she was going to delete. She didn't just delete private messages or phone calls between her and her daughters. She deleted other information. And the police allowed her. She's potentially a witness, maybe even a suspect. But she seems to be afforded privileges that others would not. So why was she allowed to do that? Okay. So why did Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, who are experienced police officers, may make your head pop off? That's a quote from Attorney Melanie Little. Your head pops off all the time. If you might find my head rolling down Blindside Road, someone bring it back. Why did Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, who are experienced police officers, ex-military, destroy their phones when they were told by lawyers that the court had issued an order that they had to hand over their phones? Brian Higgins acknowledges, when he's been challenged under cross-examination, that he acknowledges that he destroyed his phone, but he doesn't sort of come out and say, yeah, this is how I did it. He says, this is how I would do it. Again, there was footage and evidence that showed he drove onto a military base and he put his phone, he removed the SIM card, threw his phone into a dumpster on a military base and snapped or destroyed the SIM card. He hedged around it when he's been cross-examined, and eventually he gets as close to acknowledgement by saying, well, if I were going to destroy my phone like that, that would be the way I'd do it. And if I were going to destroy my SIM card, that's the way I would do it. I would snap it in half and then he put it in rubbish, a bag of rubbish from his home, and threw that into the dumpster. So these are experienced police officers. They've been involved in investigations. I have no doubt they would have been involved in either seizing or executing search warrants to seize phones. And I'm sure that if they had people they were investigating who destroyed their phones in the way that these 2 officers did, they would go, that's really sus, highly sus. Okay, so I'm up to question 9 in my list. I'm not going to go through all of them, but these were the ones that just sort of like came to my mind. Made what was going on with this investigation? How confident can any layperson be that the evidence put before a jury has credibility, validity, reliability, accuracy? So those are my questions. But now I want to go back to Kerry Roberts. So Kerry Roberts was a good friend of John O'Keefe and his parents. She had known John O'Keefe when they were in high school together. In fact, came out sometime afterwards that they'd even been to prom together. Kerry Roberts was the person who insisted that she would drive John O'Keefe's parents from their home to the hospital, the Good Samaritan Hospital, where John O'Keefe was transferred to for medical assistance. And remember that Kerry Roberts, who did not know Jen McCabe until this time, I mean, she'd met her once, apparently many years ago, but didn't know her, had not had any contact with her, and she'd met her through John O'Keefe. So John O'Keefe apparently was getting discounts for sports shoes, and Kerry Roberts has a child, and obviously Jen McCabe, and apparently Jen McCabe and Kerry Roberts both went with John O'Keefe to this sports store to get shoes for their children at discount. And that was the one and only time she had been aware of Jen McCabe before the early hours of the morning on the 29th of January 2022. So Kerry Roberts gives evidence in the first trial. She gives evidence under direct examination. However, she was not cross-examined at that point. It turns out that Kerry Roberts, on the second trial, where she is cross-examined, does have to acknowledge that some of what she said is simply not true. I wonder if I've got it here. I did see it somewhere that I had. That's right, if I scroll down here. So Kerry Roberts, she gives evidence, I understand it may have been on the first day, but she's the second witness. Remember, Timothy Nuttall was the first witness called by the prosecution, and he had to concede a number of points under cross-examination. And I also remember I said that Hank Brennan, in his opening statements, creates this dramatic scenario, and he's hinging it on Timothy Nuttall as the first responder, hearing the alarm that there's a cardiac arrest, a man in the snow, gathering up his equipment, running to the ambulance, getting in the ambulance, and then driving to the scene. Hank Brennan had said that as Timothy Nuttall is kneeling beside John O'Keefe's body, administering CPR, he looks towards Karen Reid and says, "What happened?" And Timothy Nuttall had given evidence that Karen Reid had responded, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him." Whereas in fact, under cross-examination, it turns out Timothy Nuttall was in the ambulance with John O'Keefe. He was doing ventilation, and he allegedly asks Karen, "Do you know him?" To which Karen Reid allegedly responds, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him." So I should say in the first trial, Timothy Nuttall says only twice, "I hit him, I hit him." Third trial, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him." And this is really important. Okay, so Kerry Roberts. So during the grand jury trial, so this is in the months after John O'Keefe's death, Kerry Roberts gave evidence that she heard Karen Reid ask Jen McCabe that morning as they're standing there on the on the ground beside John O'Keefe's body. Kerry Roberts says she heard Karen ask Jen McCabe to Google hypothermia. So this is around 6:30 in the morning. In the second trial, she testified that she heard Karen say, "Did I hit him? Did I hit him? Is he dead?" However, on cross, she has to admit she had not heard Karen ask Jen to Google hypothermia, that she had been told that that's what Karen had asked Jen to do. She also had to admit on cross that Jen McCabe had rung her the night before Kerry Roberts was going to give evidence, and the morning she gave evidence. And another thing that came out in the second trial was that Kerry Roberts, Jen McCabe sat down allegedly at the request of John O'Keefe's mother, Peggy, with Jen McCabe's other sister, Denise, who took notes and basically wrote a timeline. They wrote down and they collaborated on putting together information which they then later gave as evidence. And this allegedly is where Kerry Roberts heard that Jen McCabe's account of why on her phone it shows that she did a Google search at around 6:30 in the morning. How to die, how long does it take to die from hypothermia? But she didn't actually Google anything like that. And we'll talk about that in Jen McCabe's video. So I just want to sorry. As I've said before, I'm using a Zoom platform to do this and to show you information, and I couldn't minimize myself, but I've moved myself. I just want to change screens here, as I'm going to show you, first of all, the trial channel and what that looks like, how you can find information, how you can quickly jump to sections of a video, so you don't have to watch the entire video if you don't have time. So first of all, if I go up here you'll see the list of videos. As I said, Timothy Nuttall is the first witness, and here is the second witness. This is Kerry Roberts. If I go down here in this video, you will okay, if you click on different sections here, you can skip through the entire video and you can just go to certain aspects that you may want to watch. Also, if you look along here where I've highlighted, so this section is talking about heading to Jen's to meet Karen and then noticing the tail light. So let me just go full screen. And then I'm going to play this section. So this is
Kerry. Waiting for the defendant. Did she arrive at your house?
Giving
She did
direct.
What happened?
Again, I don't know if I called her or she called me, but eventually we connected on the phone and she said, "Where are you? I'm waiting." And she said, "I'm at Jen's house." And I said, "Jen who?" And she said, "McCabe. She's going to drive my car." And I said, "Okay, well, listen, they don't want cars on the road because it's so bad. I'm already in my car. I'll come there to Jen's house, stay there, and we'll follow each other and we'll go back and drop your car off. Did you look in the house for John? Could he just be in the house, passed out somewhere?" And she said, no, she hadn't looked in the house. So I said, okay, now I'm going to come to Jen's. We're going to take the car home, drop it off. We'll check around the house. And then I don't know what the next step at this point was. I just wanted to check the house.
Okay, so at this point, the plan is to go back to John O'Keefe's house. Kerry Roberts is claiming that she asks Karen, "Have you checked the entire house? Is it possible he could have, gone into another room and you just didn't know he was there. And so they are planning to return to John O'Keefe's house. So they are planning to return driving in Karen's SUV. Apparently Jen McCabe is going to drive and Karen is the passenger in the SUV. Kerry Roberts is following behind in her SUV and pulls into the driveway behind Karen. And this is at John O'Keefe's house.
The time you directed that you were going to meet at Jen McCabe's house and then drive to John's house, was there any suggestion by the defendant where she wanted to go?
I didn't know where Jen's house was. I knew the street. I had dropped Kaylee off or picked her up a few times. So I said, stay on the phone with me so I don't know which house it is. And so when I got there, I pulled in the driveway and there was some conversation about.
Can I back you up and just ask you a little bit about the drive there? I don't mean to interrupt. When you left your house, you talked a little bit about the weather conditions. How long did it take you to get from your home to Jen McCabe?
Oh, it's quick. Probably 4 minutes.
What was the driving like?
It was not good driving. That's why I didn't want two cars on the road.
Did you have any difficulty driving through that storm?
No, I mean, it was treacherous. I was in four-wheel drive. I have an SUV.
You mentioned you didn't know exactly where Jen McCabe lived.
Okay, going to move forward now to once they're back at John's home.
No.
You followed Ms. McCabe?
Yes.
Where did you go?
To John's house.
Did you arrive?
Yes.
I want to ask you some questions about when you arrived and what you did next.
Okay.
When you arrived at Mr. O'Keefe's home, you're in two separate cars. Who pulled into Mr. O'Keefe's driveway first?
Jen pulled Karen's car in first.
So Ms. McCabe was driving the Lexus.
Correct.
And the defendant was in the passenger seat?
Yes.
After you both pulled in, tell us what happens next.
We went, I wasn't sure if it was, at some point Karen showed us the taillight up close, but I didn't know if it was when we arrived or when we left. But we went into the house to look for John.
Okay, so remember, Jen McCabe and Kerry Roberts' story is that Karen points out her tail light is broken with pieces of tail light missing. And she says maybe it was caused by when she hit John. I also pointed out too that there are critical periods where the camera footage, ring footage at John's home, but other places as well, including the Kenton Police Department. But there are critical times where camera footage is just missing. The first critical one is when Karen Reed returns home after she drops John off at Brian Albert's home. She arrives home at about 12:36 a.m. Don't quote me exactly on the time. But why the exact time is known is because either Karen's SUV or her phone, one or the other, connects to the Wi-Fi at John O'Keefe's home. And that is recorded, that is documented, that is irrefutable. So the ring footage of Karen arriving back at John O'Keefe's home at that time doesn't exist. There's other ring footage, and the ring footage that does exist is at around 5:30, 5:40 in the morning when Karen leaves to go to Jen McCabe's house. There is video footage, there's ring camera footage of that as Karen reverses her SUV out of the garage. It's snowing, it's a tight turn, and John O'Keefe's vehicle is parked there. And you will see on that footage that as she reverses out and she's slowly sort of making her turn, she collides with John's vehicle. You'll see the wheel move and a bit of snow fall off that wheel. And Karen says that's what cracked her tail light. Now, Karen says it was cracked with a small piece missing, and I really want you to remember that. So that ring footage exists. The ring footage of Jen McCabe and Kerry and Karen arriving back at John's house exists. And you can see that. You see Karen's vehicle pull in, doesn't go into the garage, it just stops. You see Kerry's vehicle come in afterwards, as she describes. You see Jen McCabe get out on the left-hand side. Remember, in America, the vehicles are left-hand drive. In New Zealand, we have right-hand drive. So Jen McCabe, the driver, gets out on the left-hand side. Karen comes from the right-hand side around behind her vehicle, and Kerry comes from the left-hand side of her vehicle, and they go immediately into the house. There's no stopping behind the vehicle. There's no obvious having conversations. Karen's not pointing at her Lexus, and allegedly this is the right rear tail light that apparently was damaged. So they just all walk past quickly to go in the house. So that footage exists. And you just heard Kerry Roberts says she wasn't sure at what point Karen pointed out that her tail light was broken, whether it was when they arrived or when they left. Well, clearly it wasn't when they arrived, because there's footage of that. However, the footage of them leaving doesn't exist. So the footage that would then support Kerry Roberts or Jen McCabe's account of Karen pointing out her taillight is broken and them standing at the rear of her vehicle to look at this taillight, that footage doesn't exist. So we know for a fact, because the footage does exist, they don't do that when they arrive. And Kerry Roberts has just said in her evidence she's not sure when it happened, at what point. Was it when they arrived or when they left?
When the Lexus was parked by Ms. McCabe in Mr. O'Keefe's driveway, was it facing the street or facing away?
Facing where the basketball hoop is, not facing the street.
Light approach?
She's going to be showing a photograph.
Recognize in that photograph?
Yes, that's John's driveway. That's Karen's car on the left and John's car on the right.
Recognize both those cars?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize that photo as a fair depiction of his driveway?
Yes.
Recognize it as a fair depiction of the motor vehicles?
Yes.
Now, you went there that night, pulled in by Ms. McCabe, the defendant.
I also want to point out how calmly and clearly she is answering questions. She's not hesitating, not stumbling. She's asked a question. She's able to give a clear answer. She makes eye contact. She looks towards Hank Brennan. So this is Hank Brennan. He's the special prosecutor brought in by the attorney's office to run this case. And this is after the first trial where Lowley had led the prosecution, and now we've got Hank Brennan. Completely different approach. At times it's really wild. There's some funny moments that I will show in another clip. This isn't one of them. But this is Hank Brennan showing Kerry Roberts a photograph of the vehicles at John O'Keefe's house. Now, this really leaves me another question. Apparently, this is a photograph of Karen Reid's SUV on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side is John O'Keefe's vehicle. Apparently, this photograph was taken the morning of the 29th of January 2022. Apparently, this is when Karen Reid's SUV is back there. Okay, so let's just do the backwards and forwards of Karen's SUV. So around midnight, Karen and John leave the Waterfall Bar and drive to 34 Fairview Road, which is the home of Albert and Nicole, Brian Albert and Nicole Albert. Karen then leaves 34 Fairview Road and returns to One Meadow, which is the home of John O'Keefe. Then around 5:35, 40 in the morning, she leaves John O'Keefe's house and drives to Jen McCabe's house. Then Kerry Roberts comes to Jen McCabe's, and then Karen, Jen, and Kerry go from Jen's house back to John's house. And then they leave in Kerry's SUV. Karen's vehicle remains, her Lexus SUV remains at John's house because now Karen is in Kerry's SUV, and they go back to 34 Fairview where they discover John. Karen then leaves 34 Fairview initially in Kerry's vehicle, but then Kerry is asked to return to 34 Fairview by the police because there are concerns for Karen's mental well-being. Karen is then transferred by ambulance also to the Good Samaritan Hospital, where her father comes to see her. There is a brief interaction between Bill Reid and John O'Keefe's father, and then I assume, this is my assumption, that Bill Reid then takes Karen back to John O'Keefe's because Karen has some of her belongings there, but then, and her vehicle is there, but then Karen and her father leave John O'Keefe's home in Canton and drive to Dighton, which is where Karen's parents live, and Karen goes there. And it's at Dighton where Karen's vehicle is seized by the police. So my question is, you're going to see this photograph. It is daytime. Karen's vehicle is there. Who took the photograph? That, as far as I'm aware, that was never answered. Was it the police? Did the police, while they were, doing whatever investigation they claimed to do, take this photograph? Because if they took that photograph of Karen's vehicle parked in the driveway next to John's, they didn't take photos of the scene. They didn't document where John was found in relation to the flagpole, the house, the road, the fire hydrant. They did take photographs. There were photographs of John's shoe where it's found, and I've shown that. There's a photograph and footage of the brilliant leaf blower. In fact, I think it's attorney Melanie Reid. She's got this miniature little leaf blower. She sometimes shows it's hilarious. But who took the photograph? What time was the photograph taken? Because apparently it's the same day. And obviously it was before Karen left for the last time in her SUV, her Lexus, because the police did not seize her vehicle from John's house. So let's have a look at this photograph. It's going to be shown on the big screen.
How that area looked.
Well, it was the early hours of the morning, so it was dark out, and there was much more snow. There was snow coming down. Nope.
Other than the snow and the lighting, is there any other differences?
I just thought another thing. This is what happens. I watch, a little bit obsessed, you might say. I've watched this a number of times, and you will see this on the photograph. So if you remember, it was around midnight, because Kerry says this in her own evidence. She saw it start to snow around midnight, and it was lightly snowing. It wasn't a blizzard at that point. At about 6 in the morning, 6:30, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, it was very heavy snow. And Kerry's just said something really interesting. She's just been shown this photograph. She's looking at it. And she said, well, when she saw Karen's vehicle, it was dark, and there was a lot more snow than what was in this photograph. So I understand it was not late in the day that Karen went to Dighton. I'm not sure of the exact time, but by the time this photograph was taken, there was less snow, so maybe snow melting already, than there was earlier in the morning. So why did it take so long to find all these pieces of tail light? Because there's already less snow when this photograph was taken, enough so that Kerry Roberts comments on this specifically and points this out when she's looking at this photograph. Interesting.
Nope.
Like, this is an exhibit.
She's just asked, aren't there any other differences apart from the snow? And she says no.
What mission of others? Help us understand, you see on the left is the house,
Yes,
there's a motor vehicle in the middle of the driveway, but it's vehicle left,
yes,
and whose vehicle is that?
that's Karen's.
Is
Karen?
that where it was parked that night, in the house,
Yes,
and the motor vehicle's on the right? Recognize that?
that's John's car or SUV.
Thank you, you can take that down. I'm showing you a second.
Okay, so this is the garage where Karen had reversed her vehicle out. So you can see this would be a tight turn, and she reverses out, and as she comes around, this is at about 5:40, so there was not as much snow as this. So remember, it doesn't start to snow heavily till about 6 in the morning. And as I said, interesting that Kerry's asked, is there any other difference in this photograph apart from it not being daytime, not nighttime? And she said about the less snow. Any other difference? No. So Karen reverses out and she collides with this area of John O'Keefe's car. You see this wheel move forward and a little bit of snow. This is in the ring footage, which is taken from this angle. That might be the camera right there, actually. And it's pointing down here. So this is after Kerry and Jen and Karen had returned to John's house. And this is where her vehicle is left. And so you can see that more snow has fallen on her vehicle. So this would be the driver's side, because this is left-hand drive in America, passenger side. And allegedly, this is the tail light which is damaged. And we're going to see another photograph shortly. So if I zoom in? I don't think I can. Right. Okay, going to see another photograph shortly.
Recognize that car?
Yes,
What is it?
it's the back of Karen's car.
Does it look like a very accurate depiction of her cars that appeared that morning in the early morning hours to you?
Yes,
Notice anything that's distinguished in that photo?
the piece that's missing in the taillight.
Which one?
The right passenger rear.
You know when this photo was actually taken?
I do not.
Although you don't know when it was taken, that similar depiction of memory how it appeared that morning.
Yes,
Or a little after 5.
yes.
Question like pause.
Yes.
Okay, so now this is a close-up of the back of Karen's vehicle. And I'm looking at it going, so we have got a tail light here, a tail light here. Apparently, this is snow, and the snow is coming from this side. There are ridges around the tail light, the way it's made. And Kerry is asked to look at where is this missing piece. And I've looked at this photograph, others have looked at this photograph, and there are many, many people who are who know far more than I do, who have commented on the fact that this is snow and there is no significant damage to this tail light area. Okay, let's see what they say.
Take that down.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that one. And we're going to go to the cross-examination. Let me just. Okay. Sometimes it's just a funny thing. Right. Why is that going like that? Thankfully, you can't see what I can see. Here we go. That's come back. That's what let's go on to this one here. If I've got this in the right place, we'll be able to see what happens next. This has gone slightly weird for me. I might just go back to that one. Okay, let's go back to this. Right. Okay. Let's have a look at this one. I want to make sure I've got this in the right order. Because there is, I just saw it. Okay. Here we go. Let's see if I can pull up the next photo and share this. I'm not going to start the video again, but I now want you to see the difference. So even Kerry Roberts herself said that Karen had pointed out her tail light was broken with a piece missing. This is what Karen's vehicle looks like once it's parked in the Sally Port or the garage of the Canton Police Department. So obviously the snow has melted away, but have a look at that. This is a huge chunk. I don't know of anyone, if this is the way it was, and Kerry Roberts is showing this, and again confirms this is what she saw. And this does not, in my opinion, match either of the photographs that Kerry was shown of the morning where Karen's vehicle is parked at John O'Keefe's place. This vehicle now has been in the police under their control for many hours. They seize it from Dighton, and I may get that footage later when I talk about another police officer, Barris, who was there. This does not match any of the footage or photographs that you see until the police get the vehicle in their possession. There is other video footage, and it was taken from one of the cameras along the way where you actually see Jen McCabe drive past and with Karen and Kerry following. And it's clear that there is solid red all the way through here. So this should be solid red. And in that footage, it's quite clearly solid red. It's clear when there's footage, and the police didn't know this until the defence brought it up. There's also footage at Karen's parents' place where her vehicle is being loaded onto the tow truck, and you can see her vehicle being driven up onto the tow truck. And it's taken looking at the right side of Karen's vehicle. And again, you can clearly see that it is red when the taillights come on. So this large piece of plastic was intact, and that's the allegation, and that's my opinion, was intact until such time as it came into the police control. Karen said she cracked her taillight reversing into John O'Keefe's vehicle. She collided with it, and there's footage of that confirming that. She said she cracked it. Kerry Roberts says there's a piece missing, and she's sort of indicating, I don't know where she's indicating it's missing. I did a little bit of research into this. Okay, so this plastic, this is polycarbonate plastic, and depending on how it's strengthened and its density, polycarbonate plastic is used because it is tougher, it's stronger even than glass. It is harder to break, takes a lot of force, and depending on its strength, 8,000 to 9,000 pounds per square inch PSI. I know in New Zealand we are a metric country, but we still use PSI. I'd also contacted a service department here in New Zealand and asked if a piece of this taillight was cracked and missing, what colour light would be coming out? What light would you see? And they said, well, the bulb is red, so it'd still be red, even though you can see what's behind the plastic is not red. And that's important because there's other footage that showing Karen's vehicle leaving, where they claim, and I think it's the footage from when she's leaving in the morning, and they claim that if you look closely, you can actually see white lights. Well, if it's broken the way it was suggested it was, you wouldn't see white light, and you don't see white light in the footage where her vehicle has been driven up onto the tow truck. You don't see white light, especially this amount of white light, where you see Karen's vehicle drive past one of the cameras in the town. I think it's the library, and you can see it quite clearly. You can see clearly if this was emitting white light in a snowstorm, it would be very bright. You just simply don't see that. Okay, so I want to go back to Karen's cross-examination, just a little bit of this, because I also found this really fascinating too. Let me go down. I'm finding all sorts of interesting things, but I won't go down rabbit holes because that just won't be helpful. Let me find it. It's near the end. It's where you will see a huge change. You'll see a huge change in Kerry Roberts' demeanour as she is asked questions by Allan Jackson. Let me just stop that for a minute. The annoying thing, I showed you where I could go to certain parts of her cross-examination. For some reason, I'm just not finding it. Okay, here we go. Now, cross-examination does go on quite some time, so I may have to flip through different parts of it to try to get to the juicy part. Just going to share this. And this is an interesting little fun fact before I start it. Here we go, sharing. Right. See this lady sitting here, and she's holding a device in her hand. So in New Zealand, we're used to the court stenographers. Initially, they used to have the little machines. And now more recently, that court stenographers are sitting remotely and they are listening to what's happening in court. This is why it's very important to speak clearly, not too fast, not nod your head. You say yes, no, and be very clear. And Massachusetts and Boston, they have this weird device. You can see it in her hand, and she's going to place it over her mouth, and she's going to talk into it. And it's doing voice to text transcription. Not sure if you're going to see that happen, but that's what's going on here. She's going to take that device, place it over her mouth, and talk into it. At various points, you might see that.
Thank you. Good.
Do you see that? So she's just picked it up, put it over her mouth, and she is now speaking what she hears. Every word that she hears being said, she will speak into the cup or device. And I just want to also show, just watch the different expression on Kerry's face. I also want to point out she does have some colour in her cheeks. This is the next day. So she finished her evidence on day 1 and day 2. And this is cross-examination.
Morning, Ms. Roberts. How are you?
Good morning.
Under questioning by Mr. Brennan, you talked about the number of times or a number of times that you have spoken to the DA's office or some member of the DA's office. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about that.
Sure.
How many times in total do you think you've spoken to a representative of the district attorney's office?
I don't have a number.
Would you say it's more than a dozen?
Yes,
Would you say it's more than 50?
maybe around there, maybe less.
And who are the folks, Ms. Roberts, that you have spoken to at the DA's office?
Steve Nelson,
Okay.
the victim advocate, Yuri Buchanan, who's a state police officer, and the DA, Michael Morrissey.
And what was the, I want to take those in order, and two of those are.
Anyone else find that interesting? How many times have you spoken to the police or the district attorney's office? She goes, oh, I'm not sure. So we start to see this coming in. Again, under cross-examination, memory failure starts to come in. She's not sure. And then it turns out it could be as many as 50 times. 50 times. And often she's the one initiating. She's ringing up asking for information, not just providing information. I just found that absolutely fascinating. I just want to get to a certain part. I'm going to move forward. I'm just looking for that. Have it back to right here.
Right arm.
They were scratches.
Scratches.
So Kerry's been asked by Allan Jackson what she observed when she saw John. She saw John not just at the scene, but she also went to the hospital, and she was given permission, I assume by his family, that she was able to see John in the hospital after he'd passed away. And she, again, like Timothy Nuttall, she describes what she sees on John's arms as scratches.
Ms. Roberts, you've previously testified that when you arrived, let me take you back instead of jumping right into it. After you met up with Ms. Reed at Jim McCabe's house that morning, this is just after 5 o'clock or so, the three of you arrived back at One Meadows, correct? Is that right? I'm sorry.
Correct.
Okay. You're trailing the Lexus SUV, correct?
Correct.
The Lexus pulls in to the driveway and you pull in directly behind Miss Reed and Jennifer McCabe is driving.
Correct.
You're driving your SUV, correct?
Correct.
You've previously testified that when you arrived at One Meadows at that moment, that once that SUV, the Lexus SUV, had pulled in and you pulled in behind the Lexus, you got out of the Lexus, you got out of your SUV, they got out of the Lexus, and that's a point at which Karen showed you the back of her taillight and said something to the effect of, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you think I hit him? You recall that?
I recall saying I didn't know if it was when we were coming or going, but she did point out the taillight.
Okay. When you previously testified under oath, your quote was, quote, Karen pulls in and I pull in behind her.
Yeah, I think sometimes I forget these things. So the court office is close to the Kenton Fire Department and Police Department. And during the trial, both trial 1 and 2, you often heard the alarms and the honking of the fire engine horn, which is what you just heard there. Some have suggested that, and there's varying opinions, I don't have an opinion on it. Some have suggested that this occurred especially more often when the police or members of the police and fire department were giving their evidence, and it was their colleagues giving support support against about their evidence against Karen Read. I don't know what it is, but it frequently interrupted the evidence, and the court would stop because it was just so loud. And I'm not sure how necessary it was. I've seen other occasions where different hearings have been held in the very same courthouse. This is apparently quite a historic courthouse, and you don't hear the same thing. This seemed to be particular to Karen Read's trial.
Give page of my numbers when
Yes.
offering statements.
Sure. It's the SGJ, the grand jury, page 58, lines 14 through 19 for court and counsel. Did you testify, quote, Karen pulls in and I pull in behind her, period. When we get out, and Karen is now showing us the back of the car saying, my taillight, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you guys think I hit him? Question mark.
So Allan Jackson is reading from the transcript of Kerry Read's previous evidence, where she states quite clearly it is at the point where they arrive that Karen points out the taillight is cracked and allegedly says, did I hit him? Did I hit him? And again, this is what they allege. So remember on direct, she does say to Hank Brennan, she said, I'm not sure at which point, whether it's when we arrived or when we left. But importantly, previously, she has said under evidence, she was confident. She said it happened when they arrived. Now her evidence changing. So on arrival to I'm not sure at which point, and listen what happens.
End quote. Is that how you testified?
May I see it?
Sure.
Needing to see her own words.
I apologize, I've already got it up here.
And this becomes a
Does it
feature
have
of
a
this
date
trial
on
too.
it, Mr. Johnson?
It does.
Not just Kerry Roberts, but Jen McCabe and others wanting to see, can you show me that? Rather than being confident in what they have said previously. And often it's because what they said previously is not what they're saying currently.
Four 26-22.
Yes. Thank you. Do you have the pages after this?
I'm sure I do.
Because in the pages after this,
My
I say,
question, Ms. Roberts, is that a quote that I just said? Is that accurate? You see it in the
yes, it is.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Just for reference, I'd like to show you both pages. That's the page I asked you to look at, and then the following page as well. Please take your time.
Okay.
Let's pause for a minute here. Now we start to see a change in the colour on Kerry Roberts' cheeks. It was colour before, undoubtedly, but I noted, in my opinion, the colour is increasing. So she is showing her evidence. She starts to challenge that and say, well, have you got the other pages? And then she starts to say something. And a witness can't make their own statements. They are to answer questions. Interesting she wasn't shut down, but he does provide her both pages now.
What I'm looking for is still not here, because I did say I wasn't sure if it was before or after.
Ms. Roberts, you do have to wait.
Okay.
So
When
judge
you
should shut
gave
that
this
down.
testimony, you were in front of a grand jury, correct?
I'm not sure which one that is.
Do you remember testifying in front of a grand jury on April 26th, 2022,
Yes,
about 2 years ago?
yes,
Sorry, 3 years ago. You were under oath at the time. Is that right?
yes,
There was pressure in your mind at that time than they are now, 3.5 years later, I'm guessing.
yes,
Okay. You were asked the question to describe the circumstance when you arrived at One Meadows. Is that right?
yes,
And the answer that you gave was, quote, we pulled into it's a driveway. There's 2 cars and then 2 cars, then a single. So John's car is there. Karen pulls in and I pull in behind her. When we get out, and Karen is now showing us the back of the back of the car, saying, my taillight, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you guys think I hit him? That was your testimony at the time, correct?
yes.
Just to be clear, I'd like to take a look at a quick video that you may or may not have seen before. We'll find out. Your Honor, I'd like to have this. Actually, this has already been previously marked as Exhibit 12C as in Charlie.
Okay.
And it's a short clip. So I'll play the entire clip with the court's permission.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and take a look at that video.
So this is at John O'Keefe's home. This is Karen's SUV. It's Jen McCabe now.
Do you recognize what's depicted in the video?
Yeah, that's when we arrived at John's house.
Okay. And who's the person with the plaid red pants?
That is Jen.
And who's the person that's just rounding the back of the car in front?
That is Karen.
What is the car in front?
That's Karen's SUV.
That's the Lexus SUV.
Yes, it is.
Behind that Lexus SUV, Ms. Roberts, is there another car?
That's my car.
And who's getting out of that car?
I am.
Okay. And this is the point that you were describing in your, at least in the grand jury testimony at that time.
Yes.
This is the time that you're describing.
That I thought it was when we walked in.
This is the time that you were describing, right? When you arrive at the scene.
Yes,
Or, sorry, arrive at One Meadows.
yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and play this through.
Just immediately into the house.
Okay, you can stop it. And you can bring the lights up. You saw the interaction between all 3 of you and the vehicles, correct?
Yep.
At any point, did anybody stop and take a look at the tail light or the rear end of the car?
Not when we were entering the house like I thought, but when we came out.
Okay. And there's no video of that.
I'm sorry?
There's no video of that.
No, I don't believe so.
So the video that does exist describes nearly exactly the time that you testified that y'all stopped at the back of the taillight and Karen said, look, my taillight's broken. Oh my God, do you think I hit it?
Correct.
Okay. And that obviously was incorrect.
It was incorrect.
So your memory was faulty about that incident, that part of that incident.
It happened on the way out of the house.
So your memory was faulty about that part of the incident that you testified to at the grand jury.
Yes,
Okay. You were interviewed on January 29th. You've already testified to that, correct?
I'm going to move forward a minute. So there you heard her go from. So grand jury, it happened when we arrived, under direct with Hank Brennan. I'm not sure at which point. It may have been when we arrived, but it might have been when we left. Now she's conceded. Obviously, it was not when they arrived because she's just seen this footage. And then she says it happened when we left. So now she's confident it happened when we left. And this pattern of witnesses such as Kerry Roberts changing what happened when it occurred, the confidence in what happened and when it occurred, as they're being challenged, really stood out to me. And again, here we see, in my opinion, she's quite flushed in her cheeks, and that's, no, I'm not suggesting she's embarrassed, but it suggests to me that her internal body temperature is heating up a bit emotionally. Things, as a clinical psychologist, I'd say her arousal level is increasing. This can be because the brain is responding to the questions and the challenge as a threat, that this is a threat to her integrity. She's wanting to come across as someone who's very supportive of the key family, and especially now she calls her good friend Jen McCabe. They speak daily. She's become a really close friends, and her evidence has been challenged. She's had to concede on a number of points. And there's another one coming up, that her memory and what she's said, she just hasn't been as accurate. And she's shown us that she can go from being adamant, so grand jury, adamant, happened when we arrived, direct, it may have happened when we arrived or when we left, and now she's adamant it happened when we left. And this is not because she's gone, actually, I've had time to review what's happened and come to it spontaneously. This has only occurred as she's been challenged. She would have changed, this is my opinion, in her preparation for the trial, when she's made aware of the different footage. That is where she's changed and said it may have happened at that point or this point. But it just beggars belief. Why didn't she say to Hank Brennan, I must have made a mistake, I must have been incorrect, and it happened when we left. But remember, when they left, there's no ring footage. Again, a critical piece of time, point in time, evidence that would corroborate her, what Kerry Roberts and Jen says, and that evidence doesn't exist. Now, I just want to go getting close to the end of her evidence here. Okay, let us see.
Yes,
And moved them into the ambulance, correct? Is that right?
yes.
When you were
Getting
asked
to
the
the
question,
start,
what
the
if
Google
anything
search.
did she, Ms. Reed, ask Ms. McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, correct? Objection.
Do you recall that? I did not hear the question about Google being asked.
That's not my question. May I ask? May I inquire?
Okay, so interesting thing there. Oh, okay, good freeze there. So again, we can see the colour. See how the colour's extending now across the cheek towards the nose. You can see it on both sides. So this is where she's again been confronted. She has said to the grand jury in previous evidence that she heard Karen ask Jen McCabe to Google hypothermia. And now she's been confronted and challenged that she actually didn't hear it. She's claimed she's heard it, but she didn't hear it. And as she's asked questions, instead of answering the question, she's jumped ahead because she knows what's coming up. And she's trying to preempt, she's trying to, if you like, minimize the damage of it by now admitting, I didn't hear it.
Just repeat that question.
Sure. Isn't it true that you were next asked by Mr. Lally in front of the grand jury, quote, what, if anything, did she, Ms. Reed, ask Ms. McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, end quote. Remember being asked that question?
No.
Okay, so Allan Jackson emphasizes again, you were asked, what, if anything, did you hear? What did you hear? Making it really clear, the question is not complex, doesn't contain multiple aspects, it's not a compound question, very clear. What, if anything, did you hear? And now, when she's asked, do you remember that? Again, memory, no, I don't. I don't remember that. Don't remember being asked that. See the colour on the face.
For the last 16.
Oh, didn't catch that before too. I wonder if I can just scoot back a little bit. I don't want to waste too much time, but that was interesting. As she's handed the piece of paper, she does the slump. Okay, again, it's a instinctive reaction. Okay, yeah, here we go. I'm going to be shown wrong again. I wonder if you can see it. She sits upright, and then she slumps. Watch this. She's sitting upright, shoulders up.
Yes.
Okay. I missed that before too. Did you see that? As Allan Jackson asked permission to approach, which a lawyer must do, can't just walk up to the witness stand, but must ask permission to approach. And he is coming with another piece of paper. So she knows that she's going to be shown, again, something that challenges her previous statements. And she looks, you saw the eye contact, she looks towards Hank Brennan. So in this courtroom, the prosecution is sitting on this side, and behind them is the defense. She looks to Hank Brennan. And it was like, you're going to help me here? You're going to object? Don't let him show me this. Don't let this happen. And now look, a tongue jut here. Her tongue is out, suggesting possibly she's licking her lips. Maybe her mouth is getting a bit dry. And that would, to me, this is my opinion, I'm just looking at what I see, that she physiologically is showing a lot of signs that she is internally sort of heating up, that emotional arousal, and potentially perceiving this as a threat to her integrity. So she's reading. This is Allan Jackson challenging her on cross-examination.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, shrug of the shoulder.
And in response to that question, you stated, quote, at one point she asked her to Google hypothermia and how long Google hypothermia, correct?
Mhm.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
That was very detailed. You agree that that's a very detailed and specific recount of an event. You recounted where you were, back in the cruiser. They were in the back of the cruiser, correct?
Yep.
You reported the time, right around the time you thought they were lifting John up and scooped him up onto the gurney, correct?
Yep. I thought it was about that time. I wasn't sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that answer. You were talking over each other.
That's my mistake.
What was your answer, Ms. Roberts?
I thought it was about the time they lifted him up, but I wasn't sure.
You were very detailed about who was there. You, Miss Jen, who was my client, Kerry
Yes.
Reed, correct?
And not a vague.
Is that right?
Yes.
You're so detailed that you talked about where you were standing next to the cruiser open door, correct?
Yes.
What the others were doing, holding hands and praying, is that right?
Yes.
And the actual words used. You were detailed about all of that as the actual words used. She asked her to Google hypothermia And how long, then you stopped Google hypothermia, end quote, correct?
Correct.
You will agree, at least for that purpose, you painted a very, very detailed picture in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
Watch carefully.
Yeah.
Except it's not true, is it?
I did not hear her ask that. I was told she was asked that.
Find the
In
evidence.
The answer to my question, Ms. Roberts, on your question, what you told the grand jurors was not true. You never heard from them.
Listen how she covers this.
I did not.
Yet that's what we testified to under oath, under penalty of perjury, in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
I did.
The reason you did that, the reason that you said that false statement is because someone told you to say it, correct?
Object.
Is that, I'm gonna let her answer.
Nobody told me to say it. I knew it happened at that time.
How did you
Which is
know?
why I said it.
How did you know it happened, Ms. Roberts, if no one told you it happened?
Because we wrote a timeline. We already spoke about that.
Line that Jennifer Kaye helped you with, that influenced your testimony in front of the grand jury, correct?
Yes.
I was telling what happened in the back of the cruiser.
Headline and then you wrote,
So when you ask a question, let her answer.
headline you wrote. Get a photo case, now. Influenced your testimony, testifying in front of grand jurors, statement you never heard, correct?
Yes.
You were later asked about that statement in another investigation. I'm sorry, by another investigator or set of investigators.
This is where the
Correct.
jury is not
I don't know.
informed that
Were you
it was the
interviewed by
FBI
A
investigator.
different law enforcement agency, a
FBI.
separate law enforcement agency from the Massachusetts State Police at any time.
FBI.
Yes.
And you were told that to lie to those agents would be a crime, correct?
Yes.
Punishable by prison, correct?
I was not told that.
They asked you whether or not you heard Karen Reed ever say anything to Jennifer McCabe about Googling anything, correct?
I don't know.
Isn't it true that you told them what you've just now told us, which is, I did not hear Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to conduct any Google searches?
I don't recall.
So to refresh your recollection, to look at a copy of that interview. And that report.
Tell the grand jury. FBI. What did you say to the FBI, Kerry?
I'm going to take a look. Higher document. Whether I will find the front page. And don't answer anything about the document until I ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank you. Roberts, do you recognize that as being a report in an interview that you conducted?
I've never seen this before, but
Understood. Yeah, you may never have seen it, but does that remind you that's
yes.
a report of a conversation you had with another law
Yes.
enforcement agency? I'm going to ask you to turn to page 7. That report. And if you look, there's a small paragraph, about 2 paragraphs up from the bottom. I think I might have put a little blue dot by it, but I'm not sure. Please read that to yourself.
Correct.
Done?
Yep.
Thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Robert, does that refresh your recollection about what you told these investigators?
Yes.
And what you told them was you, quote, did not hear Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to conduct any Google
That is
search.
correct.
And you went on to say you saw McCabe on her phone.
I'll allow it.
You saw McCabe on her phone, but you did not hear Karen ask Jennifer to Google anything.
Correct.
So what you told the grand jurors was in fact false.
I misunderstood Mr. Lally's question.
Oh,
Got it.
Okay. Mr. Brennan, any questions?
okay. So then it goes to redirect. So Allan Jackson does get a chance to come back. So redirect is where the prosecution gets up and basically
never
tries
say
to
You
clean it.
actually heard that statement about that Google search.
So
You said no.
Rather wild.
Correct.
The question that was posed to you by Mr. Lally was, what, if anything, did she, Miss Reed, ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard,
Right.
correct?
I misunderstood the
And
question.
you misunderstood that question?
Yes,
What
I
did you
did.
misunderstand about that question?
I didn't know it was.
What did you misunderstand about that question? You are asked, what, if anything, did you hear? What was it that you heard? And she's saying she misunderstood that. So so you have examination, cross-examination, redirect, and then Allan Jackson is given an opportunity to ask any other questions that comes out of redirect, because she hunkers down on it. She really sticks to her guns, and he's going, well, no, it doesn't make logical sense. You've lacked credibility here, lady.
That you heard, so I was explaining what happened in the back of the car.
I see. So you just ignored the part, literally, the part of the question where he said, what did you hear her say? That's what your
The word
testimony
was
is now?
heard, and I didn't hear
It's
it.
getting
I obviously
feisty.
got the question wrong because I did not hear anybody ask about a Google search.
Well, I know that's what you're saying now. I get that. But when you were asked, what, if anything, did she ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, your immediate answer was, at one point, she asked her to Google hypothermia and how long dash Google hypothermia.
I just want to pause. You can't see it on this screen. I saw it on another device. She's actually fidgeting with her hands. You saw a little bit of hand movement, but her hands are going like this. So again, it's showing a degree of emotional agitation here. Also, she says, and Allan Jackson's making a point of this, that Jen McCabe is asked by Karen Reid, and this is only according to Jen McCabe, because remember, Kerry has now had to acknowledge she didn't hear it, whereas initially she was saying she heard it too. But it's only come from Jen McCabe that Karen Reid asked her to Google hypothermia, and then she stops herself, how long, and stops hypothermia. That's really key, because what Jen McCabe Googled was, she misspelled it, how long to die in the snow, or how long to die in the snow. And that's what Jen McCabe has tried to delete from her phone. And she's asked the question, what was it that you heard? And she has claimed she heard it, and she didn't. She was told by Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe tells Kerry Reid, when they do that timeline that they worked on together, that is where that piece of information comes from. This is not something Kerry heard. Then she tries to say, well, I saw the phone. I could see her Googling it on the phone. Now she's saying she misunderstood Lally's question when he said, what, if anything, did you hear, or what was it you heard? And she's saying, she thought he's saying what happened. So she's just saying what happened, even though she didn't hear it, and I doubt that she even saw it. Her credibility is now really undermined.
End quote. Correct?
Correct.
That was your answer.
Yes,
Correct?
to a question I misunderstood.
And that was a false statement, wasn't it?
Technically,
Technically?
yes, technically.
Ms. Roberts?
Okay, so
So technically it was a false statement. Technically, So again, trying to minimize the impact of this. And Allan Jackson gets a little bit of a slap here because he goes, well, can you be technically pregnant? Get sod off for that.
Remember, jurors, I said earlier, comments of counsel are not evidence and you're to disregard them. Ask a question.
Thank you, Your Honor. What do you mean technically?
Technically, I was under oath and I did not hear Jen.
Technically, she was under oath. You're either under oath or not. So using a word such as technically is again trying to give yourself out a little bit of wriggle room. It's no such thing as technically you're under oath. You're under oath. And she goes, technically.
Karen asked Jen to Google it,
And yet under oath.
but I knew it happened at that
And yet
time.
under
She
oath,
knew it
you
happened.
did.
At that
Correct.
time.
And that was a lie, correct?
Yes.
Was that a lie? Did you lie?
I did not intentionally,
But you did.
And,
not intentionally.
okay, that's the end of
Understood
this.
the question, Mr. Jackson.
All right, is there any other question or was that it?
Oh, look at that eye
I
contact.
said I misunderstood the question, Mr.
Oh.
Jackson.
Oh, it looks good. Go. So Judge Bev is trying to stop this, and Kerry's not having it. She's like, no, it wasn't intentionally, Mr. Jackson. And she's making, as he walks back from the podium back to the defense table, she is staring at him. She is glaring at him. Not intentionally, Mr. Jackson. Let's have a look at that again.
What do you mean
Watch.
technically?
Technically, I was under oath and I did not hear Karen asked Jen to Google it,
And yet under oath.
but I knew it happened at that
And yet
time.
under oath, you said you did.
Correct.
And that was a lie.
Look at those
Correct?
cheeks.
Yeah.
Was that a lie? Did you lie?
I did not intentionally,
But you did.
And,
not intentionally.
okay, that's the
Watch.
end of this.
Understood the question, Mr.
Watch.
Jackson.
All right,
Watch.
is there any other question or was that it?
Watch. Oh.
I said I misunderstood the question, Mr. Jackson. That's what happened.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I don't know anyone else thought that was fun. I thought that was fun. Let's bring myself back here. Okay, so that's Kerry Roberts. Being saying pause it. That's good to know. What was that? How did that come up? Okay, so that was Kerry Roberts giving evidence in the second trial. So she was not cross-examined in the first trial for whatever reason, but she was cross-examined in the second trial. And you see how her evidence changes as she gets challenged. And then she doubles down on things. And then she tries to give an explanation. Then she minimizes by using words like technically. So just to recap. So she tells the grand jury that she heard Karen Reid ask Jen McCabe to Google hypothermia. And you might think, well, why is that important? What does it matter? But it does become really important later on. So remember, this is the second witness in the second trial. And she's already, again, just like Timothy Nuttall, had to make concessions that her evidence given at previous times is not accurate. So she tells the grand jury that she hears it. And she didn't. She's had to acknowledge she didn't hear it. She won't say she was told it, but she knows it happened, like somehow, osmosis. But she does acknowledge that she sat down with Jen and Jen's sister Denise to write the timeline. And logically, that will be where she hears Jen say that she was asked. Now, the only other evidence or suggestion that Karen has said that comes directly from Jen McCabe, as does quite a few things. So she's had to concede that point. And when at the end of that, you see her fire up when she's being told, you did that under oath. And she goes, well, technically I was under oath. No, you're not technically under oath, dear. You are either under oath or you're not under oath. There's no technicality about it. And then she's trying to say, well, she misunderstood the question. And then Allan Jackson's firing back, well, you know, you gave false evidence, false testimony. She goes, not intentionally. And as he's walking away, she's glaring at him, and not intentionally, Mr. Jackson. And you can see just the colour around her cheeks, and it comes all the way across. If you watch carefully, you'll see her breathing increase, as I said, so you can see the chest rising and falling increases. Depending on what device you're using, she's doing this with her hands. You can see her hands moving, top of her hand. So, and it's quite a bit of movement there. So all of that would suggest to me, if I was working with a client, for example, in a therapeutic way, and I saw that change of colour in their face, hearing the different language they're using, seeing changes in their body language, I may stop and say, look, I've just noticed something's happened. You're reacting to something there because your face seems to be a bit more red and you're a bit more fidgety. What are you thinking? What's going on for you? What are you feeling? If I'm doing an interview for the court in my role, then if I would see that change too during questioning, I may even stop it as well and say, hey, just notice this change. What's going on for you? So I'm not a lawyer, I'm a psychologist, and I'm noticing these changes in someone. Someone were to sit back and slump down. And when they've been sitting forward, I might say, okay, what's happened? You know, you've just shown a bit of a response. And they might just say, oh, I just need to change posture, I just need it, you know, get a bit more comfortable. But more often than not, when I ask that question, it's something's upset them. It could be a question I've asked. It could be a memory that's come up with them. So I'm watching that and I see that in Kerry. The other one that she's had to acknowledge is she first tells the grand jury that when she arrives at John O'Keefe's with Kerry and Karen, it's Karen then tells them about her taillight being broken. Under direct examination, she says, well, she's not sure which point, but she knows that's going to be a video, but she does acknowledge that later as well. But instead of saying, look, I made a mistake, I said it was at when we arrived, but actually it was when we left. But instead on direct, she says she wasn't sure what point. It could have been when they arrived, and it might have been when they left. And that really confused me and still confuses me, because she knows that Allan Jackson is going to show this ring footage. And she knows that that does not show what she claims it to show. And she also acknowledges that she knows that the ring footage does not exist of when they left, which is now the time that she's claiming that this occurred. So again, why, as a psychologist sitting in New Zealand, would I be interested in this case? I find it fascinating to watch people and to listen to how they give evidence. I'm mindful of myself when I'm on the witness stand and I'm being cross-examined, and that's how I present, how I answer questions, that make sure that I answer the question that's being asked. If I'm not sure of an answer, I will acknowledge it. I will not try to fiddle that with stuff and claim it's something I just know. I'm very careful about the words I choose. So I'm often finding trials where other psychologists are giving evidence to watch how they manage those situations, but also how other people do. So part of why I'm interested too is because of those relationships and dynamics. So this Kerry Roberts is a really interesting one, because she's good friends with John O'Keefe and she gets to know Karen through John O'Keefe. It is after John O'Keefe's death she becomes good friends with Jen McCabe, to the point that she will make statements under oath based on what Jen McCabe's told her, and say it as if it's what she knows and what she heard. there's anyone watching this, I hope that you found that interesting. If I've laughed inappropriately, because I thought Kerry Roberts' response and her glaring at Allan Jackson was funny, it did amuse me. I remember at the time just being shocked, like going, oh, gosh, you've really fired up there, lady. And I hope that my take on this as a clinical psychologist is of interest and may make you interested or make someone interested to go back and watch it for themselves. Okay, and I said in my other video too that part of my, the big part of my research for my master's and PhD was looking at memory and false memories. So I'm interested in that because that was mentioned in this trial as well. So I'm going to end the recording for now and we'll finish this video and hopefully I'll see you at another time. So wishing you all the best. Ka kite.